Hey guys, so I have another story for tonight. This one is called The Queen Bee. Two kings' sons who sought adventures fell into a wild, reckless way of living and gave up all thoughts of going home again. Their third and youngest brother, who was called Witling and had remained behind, started off to seek them. And when at last he found them, they jeered at his simplicity and thinking that he could make his way in the world, while they, who were so much cleverer, were unsuccessful. But they all three went on together until they came to an ant hill, which the two eldest brothers wished to stir up, that they might see the little ants hurry about in their fright and carrying off their eggs. But Witling said, "Leave the little creatures alone. I will not suffer them to be disturbed." And they went on farther until they came to a lake, where a number of ducks were swimming about. The two eldest brothers wanted to catch a couple and cook them, but Witling would not allow it and said, "Leave the creatures alone. I will not suffer for them to be killed." And then they came to a bee's nest in a tree, and there was so much honey in it that it overflowed and ran down the trunk. The two eldest brothers then wanted to make a fire beneath the tree, that the bees might be stifled by the smoke, and then they could get the honey. But Witling prevented them, saying, "Leave the little creatures alone. I will not suffer them to be stifled." At last, the three brothers came to a castle, where there were in the stables many horses standing, all of stone, and the brothers went through all the rooms until they came to a door at the end, secured with 3 locks, and in the middle of the door a small opening through which they could look into the room. They called out to him once, twice, and he did not hear, but at the third time he got up, undid the locks, and came out. Without speaking a word, he led them to a table loaded with all sorts of good things, and when they had eaten and drunk, he showed to each his bedchamber. The next morning, the little gray man came to the eldest brother, and beckoning, brought him to a stable of stone, on which were written 3 things directing by what means the castle could be delivered from its enchantment. The first thing was that in the wood under the moss lay the pearls belonging to the princess, 1,000 in number, and they were to be sought for and collected, and if he who should undertake the task had not finished it by sunset, if but 1 pearl were missing, he must be turned to stone. So the eldest brother went out and searched all day, but at the end of the day he had only found 100. Just as was said on the table of stone came to pass, and he was turned into stone. The second brother undertook the adventure next day, but it fared with him no better than with the first. He found 200 pearls, and was turned into stone. And so at last it was Witling's turn, and he began to search in the moss, but it was a very tedious business to find the pearls, and he grew so out of heart that he sat down on a stone and began to weep. As he was sitting thus, up came the ant king with 5,000 ants, whose lives had been saved through Witling's pity, and it was not very long before the insects had collected all the pearls and put them in a heap. Now the second thing ordered by the table of stone was to get the key of the princess's sleeping chamber out of the lake. And when Witling came to the lake, the ducks whose lives he had saved came swimming and dived below, and brought up the key from the bottom. The third thing that had to be done was the most difficult, and that was to choose out the youngest and loveliest of the 3 princesses as they lay sleeping. All bore a perfect resemblance to each other, and only differed in this, that before they went to sleep each one had eaten a different sweet meat, the eldest a piece of sugar, the second a little syrup, and the third a spoonful of honey. Now the queen bee of those bees that Witling had protected from the fire came at this moment, and trying the lips of all 3, settled on those of the one that had eaten honey, and so it was that the king's son knew which to choose. Then the spell was broken, every one awoke from stony sleep, and took his right form again. And Witling married the youngest and loveliest princess, and became king after her father's death, but his 2 brothers had to put up with the 2 other sisters. I guess that's one of those stories with a moral. Anyways, that is Storytime with Rebecca. I hope you enjoyed it. I love you guys, and good night.